Dalton Knecht's path to the pros is pretty remarkable. With basically zero college interest coming out of high school, he attended a junior college in Colorado. He then proceeded to get exponentially better every single year of his college career, first transferring to Northern Colorado, then Tennessee in his final year and dominating at every single stop. Now, as he enters the NBA draft, the conversation becomes, will he be able to extend that growth to the NBA level? Today, we plan on answering that question. Many people admit that Knecht does a lot of things well, but concerns with defensive ability and age have held him back from being considered in the absolute top tier of prospects for the 2024 draft class. Today, we plan on looking at the pros of his game, the cons, and try to see how good Dalton Knecht could actually be at the next level. So with all that, let's get into it. First things first, Knecht is a pretty exceptional shooter, nearly 40% from 3 while being the number one option on offense, shooting 6.5 attempts a game, and being the top name on the opposing team's scouting report every single week. Impressively, his shot consistently improved every single year of his college career, even when looking at the level of competition he faced, gradually getting better every single year. It's honestly wild to see him jump from playing at Northern Colorado to going right into being the number one offensive player on a good Tennessee team, and becoming more efficient on more volume playing in the SEC. There's a lot to like about how he gets his shots up. He has shown good range, he comes off screens well, and he makes them consistently even when heavily contested. I think he is very pro-ready in this regard. You definitely look at Knecht and see a player who's almost certainly going to come right into the NBA and be a high-level perimeter shot maker right off the bat. And there's never a team that has too much in the way of good shooters. Shooting is that one dynamic that even the best shooting teams are always looking to improve at, and Knecht looks to be a very impressive prospect here. Where you really see Knecht differentiate himself from a lot of other traditional three-point shooting specialist types is he's not just a three-point shooting specialist. He's actually a very well-rounded offensive player at all three levels. Looking at his self-creation ability, this is something he's definitely got a lot better at throughout his career. He's a strong self-creator that has a really good combination of moves that he uses to create space to either get to the rim or pull up in the mid-range. He certainly prefers to get to the rim over pulling up in the mid-range, as you see him almost always favor getting all the way to the rim as opposed to stopping and pulling up. But the pull-up game is there as well. I would have almost liked to see him use it more in college, but overall not many complaints here. I definitely see him as someone who will want to not just come off screens as a designated shooter, but the type of player you can't play too far up on at the NBA level, because unlike a lot of shooters, he does have the capacity to get by a defender who is overcommitted too hard to the three. Speaking of screens, he really likes using them, and he's looked extremely competent in his decision making off the screen. He knows when to take it himself and when to dump it off, and that does additionally seem like another positive trait that NBA teams will want to develop and utilize overall. He should be very good at this at the pro level. The only slight concern is his speed is not elite. He isn't slow, but he isn't extremely quick either, leaving him in the position where, in a league where defenders are quicker and stronger, he may find it much more difficult to get some of the shots he was getting in college. But he has adapted well to multiple different levels of the college game, and I think he can adapt to the NBA level as well. Like I said earlier, Knecht is not simply a traditional spot-up three-point specialist. He is a scorer at all three levels, and his rim finishing is quite impressive overall. Other than that rare occasion where he's missed some fairly makeable lay-ins, he was generally a very dangerous downhill threat. He has really good sizing control, and he's a great vertical athlete. Very good at elevating over defenders to finish. He's effective with both hands, and his mix of size and athleticism really makes him a dangerous player going downhill. This season, he ended the year shooting 58% at the rim, which is, again, really good and a good representation of the idea that he is indeed quite the good finisher, even if he does on occasion miss some easier finishes. He works well off ball to create openings to catch lobs, and on ball, creating space for himself to get to the rim on his own. I think to some degree people have painted Knecht into a corner with their scouting on him. Many fans and others seem to think that he's mainly just a shooter, but his finishing has clearly shown that he has a diverse set of moves that he can use to put the ball in the basket, and that moveset should translate incredibly well to the NBA level. Now, when you really start to get into the different aspects of Knecht's game outside of scoring, that's when you really start to see the flaws come in. As far as playmaking goes, he tends to struggle with opening up shots for his teammates. You see this clearly represented in his 1.8 assists a game and his 1.7 turnovers. A virtual 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, while at the same time averaging less than a turnover a game, is not great to say the least, but where do those points of improvement come in here? I think primarily what you see is he's always thinking score, 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 so he plays himself into positions where the shot isn't there, but the pass isn't either, He'll drive into a crowd and go up into a shooting motion, and then he'll realize that the shot probably isn't the best decision there, and he'll attempt to kick the pass out, and it will result in a turnover. Additionally, his passes out of double teams often do result in jump passes where it seems like he just flings the ball in the general direction of a teammate, and while it works fairly often, there are still some times where the pass is just generally errant. I will give him credit, he isn't a black hole on offense. He does move the ball within the offense when necessary, which is more than a lot of scorers can say. So while he may not be the best overall passer, he is one that will actively try to set others up. While the playmaking game is a weakness, I don't see it as something he can't improve on over time. Yeah, so Knecht isn't good at defense. That's just the bottom line. That definitely does limit his potential NBA role to bucket getter as opposed to the more diverse range of outcomes that come with being good defensively, like a 3-and-D specialist or a two-way star, so to speak. Let's look at the positives first. He is better as an off-ball guy than an on-ball guy. He does an acceptably good job at cutting passing lanes and rotating over for blocks, and that's something to be said and does give him some value as opposed to none at all. On-ball though, he wasn't great. Really, the majority of his trouble was with sticking with guys, especially on switches. He often ended up being the target of opposing teams in ball screens because he simply did not do a good job when he ended up on a quicker player. He recovered well and found a way to contest, but that becomes harder and harder as you do move up in the basketball ranks. The NBA is much less forgiving in allowing a player to get by you than college is. Overall, you definitely want to see him target this as his biggest area of improvement. The likelihood of him ever becoming a great defender is low, but you never want to have a player you have to hide on the defensive end. If he gets to the point where he's guarding players that are like off-ball threats effectively and he improves his switching, then you should be satisfied with what he provides on that end. So people have been comparing him to like Max Strus and Doug McDermott. Let's just be honest here, we don't have to compare white players to other white players. I feel like we try to force those comparisons too often. He doesn't play like those guys. Knecht personally reminds me a lot of Rudy Gay in the way that he played. Just a solid bucket getter by any means. Not probably ever the best one or one of the best scorers in the league, but a very, very good one. And one that you're always worried about making a tough shot at any level of the court. A lot of their games are similar, both solid scorers at all three levels with really solid athleticism, around the same height, and both with some degree of a tendency to turn the ball over as opposed to setting other players up. A player like Rudy would be a great outcome for the career of Knecht, as he had a long career of averaging around 20 a game, providing a great scoring punch to all the teams he played for, and even as a flawed player overall, was definitely a net positive to have. So in conclusion, I would say I'm higher on Dalton Knecht than the general public seems to be. Most people, it seems, have him somewhere in the 10 to 14 range as a prospect. I'd put him more in like the 5 to 8 range as far as value. The concern seems to be that he's a bad defender that's old with very little potential, but let's be real here. His defense is below par, yes, but as a whole, he is much further along overall as a player than a lot of these prospects in this range. Compare him player to player with TJ Salon or Cody Williams, for example. Right now, Knecht is just a much better, much more pro-ready player. You take those guys for potential, and am I saying I'd go Knecht over them in every situation? Absolutely not. If I'm a squad firmly in a rebuild, I would definitely take a Salon or a Holland or a Buzelis over Knecht, but if I'm, say, the Grizzlies at 9, and there just isn't another home run guy that has fallen, I'd be extremely happy with Knecht. I actually think he'd be a great fit for the Spurs as well at one of their picks alongside a lead guard. His range of outcomes are probably much narrower than some of the top-end home run swing prospects, but that doesn't mean he has no potential at all either. Like we mentioned, he has gotten better every single year in college. Went from an average community college player to a dominant one. Then transferred to a mid-major. Was average there, then he was dominant. Then went to a Power 5 and dominated there. He stepped up his game at every single level and showed exponential improvement every year he has played. He's a high floor prospect with a lot of NBA ready skills right now, but also the type of player that has more of a ceiling than people realize. He's the type of player that I'd make a bet on based on how he's improved in the past, and if I were to wager, I think he has more growth left as a player than many people are assuming he does. And with all that, we conclude this video. Thanks to everyone for watching. If you like this one, be sure to like and subscribe, as there'll be a few more scouting reports coming up before the draft starts and possibly some other content as well. So anyways, hope you guys enjoy. Hey, thanks again for watching this video. If you like what you saw, go ahead and click on one of these videos here to see more.